Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just putting links in the chat right now, which I will continue to repost so that people as they arrive will continue to get them. Feel free to begin to review any of the material you so wish. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. And we'll get going shortly. I'm just going to give a few minutes for people to arrive. Hello, everybody. Right now, I'm just waiting a few minutes for people to arrive. I'm putting the agenda and other materials in the chat. I will continue to repost them as I know people who are just arriving won't see the old chats. All right. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. I hope I'll answer all of them today. You see anything in my slide deck or the manual offhand or at some point that you want greater emphasis upon, I can do that. I'm going to go through the slide deck, but I'm hoping to do that relatively quickly as opposed to my earlier versions of this, because for some people it's going to be extremely basic. Oh yes, yes. First of all, yes, when you to make copies of any of this stuff, all you have to do is open it in your browser, and you should be able to save a copy to your Google Drive. Or you can make a copy of it. Either one is fine with me. On top of that, too, on the agenda, I have information about a Google Classroom that I developed just for this seminar that has all of the material there, too. So it's got the class and the passcode. And if you join in with that, then you can always find these things later on. I do update the versions of them, but when I do this each year, I admittedly make a copy of the old one and then update that. Because it just seems like a better way to do things. Let's see. Yes, and all the items that I'm giving you are the things we're going to be using today. So I'll wait till about 1:20 and I'll cover the agenda, and then the slide deck that I'm giving you, I will be going through that. I'm going to do it in such a fashion where I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on each slide, because literally there's just a picture of something and a short definition. And a lot of these things, depending on who you are, you may, or if you don't, that's why I'm doing this. And if you do, that's okay, because I'll try to brush through that part faster, because what I hope to do is concentrate a little more on pro tips and processes of how to do things that I describe in the manual. From year to year, these things change. I spent about 7 hours over the past couple of days going through a very thorough update of my manual. That said, if you come across any links that don't work, please let me know. I'm going to review them again, because I swear, as I was checking my links to verify that it worked, 1 second it worked and the next minute it didn't, and it turned out there was a whole thing. Because I know that around August, it seems like the district takes it upon itself to publish the new versions of some of their web pages that have information and things like that. And this is the world we live in, and I do what I can to try to keep on top of that for my sake and you all's sake, so that way we can get the information we need to enter the school year and feel comfortable we know what the heck to expect. I'll go ahead and post those links again. Oops. Is it not sending? Oh, that's why. There we go. All right, we're at 1:20. I think we can go ahead and get started now. The first thing I want to do is bring up the agenda. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'd like to spend just a little bit of time with explaining what we're doing, and then we'll go right into the heavy duty material here. I've been posting the links to this agenda and the slide and the manual in the chat, and we'll continue to do so periodically throughout this session. If you have any particular questions or things you want to learn, please put them in the chat. This is pretty much a beginner course, so there's some things I may not know, but if I do know the answer, I'll give it to you. And if I don't, and I don't cover it normally, I can give you an idea of where to get that information. There's a lot of tech stuff going on these days, and the best thing to do is to not think too hard about what you're learning and go by feel toward what you think you need to know. If something's being used in a classroom, good idea to know that. If something says, hey, to you, I can use that information, use it. If it just doesn't seem like it has anything to do with you, you can always get to it later or just forget about it. First thing we're going to go over are a lot of key terms, and that's what my slide deck largely is going to be. So that's going to be the main part of the visual presentation today. Other than that, I'll go over processes and show you hands-on more or less how to do things. And the getting started with computers, of course, how do you find the start button may seem awfully basic, but I know some people have trouble with that because some people are just getting into computers now. So that's why this class exists. That said, though, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence if you already know these sorts of things. And of course, I don't want to dwell too much on stuff just like that. But that said, we're going to get into some of the basic things you need to know to get things done in the district. At the very end, you'll see I have the Google Classroom. I have a code and I have a link. If you click on that link and put in that code, you can join the Google Classroom. All the documents that I'm putting into the chat will be there. Excuse me. All right, now. Okay, now we get into the heavy duty stuff here. Okay. Here. Okay, so sign-in information is in the first slide. If you have access to the slide deck as per the links I put in the chat, you can go ahead and use that right there. You can also, of course, scan your QR code. We will cover what a QR code is, as a matter of fact. A lot of things we use letters for, they actually have words attached to them, and you don't need to know them, but sometimes it's fun just to have some idea what's going on. So that you'll need to sign in once today. And if you've done that already, you're good to go. Okay. So the information about getting paid, that's also in the slide deck. If you download the or even just open up the link to this slide deck on your browser, all those links will be live there. And now we get into getting started with computers. I'm going to be closing my window to make sure you can see the whole thing here. So if anything comes up, you can't see something, there's a problem or something, just go ahead and put something in the chat. Oh, I can absolutely drop the links into the chat again. There we go. I am completely understanding of life in terms of I don't believe situations like we've got here should ever be it's something that should be a source of anxiety. I believe that computers are like etiquette. They should make our lives easier. So if you need anything, honestly, just ask. Don't feel embarrassed. If you don't know something, don't feel embarrassed about that. If you want to give me a direct message with a question because you don't want to put it for the whole group, that's fine too. Whatever works best for you. So first, we're going to cover the glossary. And of course, there's our start button. One of the things I emphasize with this is that there are two main types of computers you're going to be coming across in your working years, and some of them are going to be PCs and some are going to be Macs, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. But long story short, the start button on a Mac is going to be on the monitor, and that turns on everything. On a PC, it's going to be on a tower, which is separate from the monitor. And I'll get into a little more later about why I point that out. Your desktop screen, what you're all looking at right now. The dock is what's on Macs. It's got your icons at the bottom as opposed to throughout the desktop. This is where you can click on programs. The hardware is what the physical things that are your computer and its parts, and the peripherals. That's the fancy word for your printers and anything you attach to it, scanners, whatever it may be. Computer tower is part of a PC. You don't see this with a Mac. A Mac looks like just a monitor, and the computer is in that. In the case of a computer tower, this is what you get with the PC, and the monitor is a separate component that plugs into it. There's your Mac computer screen, like I said. Mac versus PC. So the equipment looks different, but they do the same things. Why I like to point this out to people is if you ever have a tech problem with your computer, let's say you turn on your computer and your monitor seems to go on, but then it doesn't seem to do anything beyond that. Well, it could be you don't have a problem with your computer. It could be that you're working on a PC and you have to also turn on the tower. You can see on the left that there is the Mac PC. That computer is inside that screen. Right, you see the PC, and you notice the tower is different. So there's two separate power buttons for the PC. Laptop computer. These are what we commonly use as school. Teachers get them, paras don't. We get Chromebooks, but they work very much the same. And I'll describe the difference there in a minute. Okay, so this is your Chromebook. Looks like a laptop. The difference is that it doesn't have a hard drive. Now, when they say it doesn't have a hard drive, I have noticed it seems to have some way to store a very few programs. So it's got something. What you can't do is store files or photos on the computer itself. No big deal, because you end up by storing those things on your Google Drive. For anyone who doesn't already know this, while you work for the school district, you have unlimited space on your Google Drive. You can put tons of photos, videos, all sorts of information you need, anything from today or professional development, lesson plans, everything you need, you can put on there. I often tell people, if you still choose to use things like the Microsoft Office suite, still upload your files, everything you do for the district, into your Google Drive. I often say that you, if the district is always, says stuff, keep the personal, the professional, they can look at everything you do. I say, wear them out, make them tired. If you ever look at your desktop, treat it like a portfolio, and then you have all your stuff there and say, wow, you do a lot of stuff, because we do. Okay, the Chromebook versus PC Mac, of course, like I said, that accesses the internet, does everything you need it to do. It just looks a little bit different, and some of the function keys are a little bit different. That's your Chromebook charger. This is a little bit of an important thing as per, excuse me, basic Chromebook maintenance. When you go back to school after having your Chromebook off all summer, assuming it has been, what you want to do is plug this thing in and recharge it and let it sit before you need it, like at least for a couple of days before. This is why it updates whenever you turn it off and back on. And it's supposed to update in the background. My experience with them is when I first pull them out of the box, it takes about an hour for to update, even with my broadband at home. And why I point this out is because if you have a slow connection or what have you, it can slow down your work a little bit if it's updating a lot of stuff. Other than that, once you go through sort of letting it sit connected to the internet after a long break, the rest of the time you don't need to worry about that. It'll just update in the background. Your charge ports are on the side there. That's where you're going to be able to put in USB drives and headphones and all kinds of things. Also, your charger port's going to be on the side too, where as big as the plug is, it goes into the wall. The one that goes into the Chromebook itself is pretty small. That's your trackpad touchpad. I don't like my trackpad touchpad. Now, no offense to it. I'm sure it means well, but it doesn't work that well for me. So what I do is, and I'll describe more of this later, you can purchase your own mouse with a dongle, and that goes into the port on the side. And what you'll get from that is the use of a normal mouse and such, and it works, quite frankly, I think, better than the trackpad. And then again, if the trackpad works for you, that's fine. Wi-Fi icon, this is where you can see, and it's good to kind of familiarize yourself. What does it look like when it's connected? What does it look like when it's not? That way you can tell if you're getting a connection or not. So especially if you have a tech problem, you can tell the tech people, yeah, it's doing this or that. That's your battery icon, lets you know how full battery is. When these little lines further to the top, you got a nice full battery. And when it's down at the bottom, or you can see that it's either empty or it needs to recharge or what have you. And display, it's over on the right. Doesn't look like a clock here, but you have that over on the right of the battery icon. Settings icon, that's where you can get into your Chromebook and probably have more things than you want to deal with, but it's never a bad idea to play around with these things when you have time to know it. Chromebook notifications, you see a little number like this where it's indicated here. You can click on it, it'll tell you what's going on. Maybe it might tell you to click a restart button so that way it'll update. This is a CPU, central processing unit. This is what we also refer to as our computer, as per, this is what makes it all work, is the CPU. The CPU is to some degree the whole, the computer, but this is the processor. And the thing is that if your processor isn't in your computer, isn't strong enough, even if you've got good broadband, your computer might slow. So this is what happens with computers as they age. They may develop problems in and of themselves, but also what's happening is we're developing programs that require more power to work. And so if your computer is, say, 10 years old or something, you might find it getting glitchy. And so it'll be time to update it. So the two things to really make your computer work properly are going to be a good internet connection and a good processor. The RAM is your ready access memory. You don't have any of that. Well, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Apologize for that. This is what runs your programs. ROM is the read-only memory, and this is what you have, not in your Chromebook, but in a regular PC or Mac. Hard drive, they don't look like this anymore, I'm told, but this was the best picture I could come up with to describe what they're like. Looks like a stack of CDs. That's where all your information is stored when you have a hard drive. Chromebooks, of course, don't have these. Your monitor, QWERTY keyboard. Those at home, QWERTY are the first letters at the top of your keyboard. That's why they call it QWERTY. It's also an acceptable Scrabble word with Q without U word notice. Keypad, this is where you type numbers. You can also type numbers from your QWERTY keyboard at the top. Use this when you prefer the feel of a calculator adding machine. Excuse me. So then you have keyboard arrows. You can use these to move your cursor around or your page around instead of your mouse in some cases. And that's, it's also good for like moving things around documents, things like that. That's your mouse. Cursor is one of two things here. The little arrow is what you're going to be moving around. Like you see my arrow here, if you see mine. The other thing to the right is a symbol you may see. Sometimes it's just like looks like a capital I and it blinks. And that's when you put the, you click in a dialog box or you're entering information. And what you're going to find is that where it's blinking is where your text is going to appear. Okay, I got a question here. What we got here? Oh, can people hear me? Because somebody says they can't hear. Am I muted? No. Looks like I'm coming through. Okay. Woo.
I hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Normally my voice is pretty loud.
Yes,
so.
yes.
You can, okay, good. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
This is a word that is handy and also can be confusing to people. I have friends say, what are you talking about, a carrot? First of all, I did check the pronunciation. It's pronounced like carrot, like Bugs Bunny eats. And these are things that generally you will be clicking on some page to make things happen. So the most common one I see is the one here on the top right. That is usually opens drop-down menus. These two at the bottom and go left and right is what you will see in Power when you're trying to find your paycheck. When it's on the most recent paycheck, it'll look a certain way, and I'll get into that later. And then when you want to go back and look at a previous paycheck, then you've got the left arrow to click, and then you can go back to the previous ones, whatever, by clicking the right. So that they basically can toggle back and forth to these things. Sometimes there might be a drop-up menu or something. They look the same kind of thing. It looks like the proofreader mark, you know, but same word, I think, too, a carrot. It's just handy to know. Clicking is just a matter of, you know, you do to make things happen. You touch your touchpad or your mouse and you click on things to make things happen. Speakers, headphones, printer, scanner, iPod. These aren't used that much these days. We have a few at where I work at in case we need them for pictures or something, doing photographs, but for the most part, we use our phones. And we got here now. Where are the signs in the computer? If you're talking about the carrots appear on web pages. So you won't see the carrots in your keyboard. They are generally going to be something on a web page you click on to make some sort of menu open up. I hope that answers the question. Okay. iPad, this is a small portable computer, etc. Most of the time, we don't seem to use these a lot in the district, except commonly in special education. They may be used elsewhere, but mostly I'm seeing them in special education. And this is where we see them, the AAC device. Augmentative and alternative communication, AAC device, is a way that someone communicates besides talking. People of all ages can use AAC if they have trouble with speech or language skills. So these are also often given to our students who have aphasia or the inability to acquire language. Honestly, such students are really interesting because they can't learn language to speak, but they often understand what they hear. So I've worked with many like this over the years. They often take directions well. We go out in the community with them, and they're able to do volunteer sites and all kinds of things. But you can't actually talk with them. You can talk to them, but they won't be able to respond necessarily. So the AAC device gives them a way to push pictures that allow the device to speak for them. In another case, this is somewhat different, and this is where the mobile phone came in handy for one student. He didn't need to push icons. He could speak, except for the fact his tendons were too short in his throat, so he can only make these kind of funny noises. As a result, he used his mobile phone and a program where he could type in things that would then speak for him. And it could get a little amusing because sometimes he put different voices in, depending on the effect he wanted to have. Smartphones. These things are interesting because, you know, for the longest time, it's been a matter of no phones in school. I'm a great advocate for teaching responsible phone usage to students. Get them to stop thinking of it as simply gaming or texting devices, but things where they can look up information or what have you. Again, in special education, these can be lifesavers for students. It allows some of them to be independent in ways they wouldn't be able to be otherwise. They can look up bus routes. This has become an incorporated part of our travel training program, where they have to show us that they know how to, well, this is after they get to a certain step where they can go to and from school by themselves on Muni. But then if they want to be more independent, they have to be able to show that they can find routes and implement traveling on those routes by themselves. They're good for looking up information. When students have myriad questions about stuff, sometimes it gets, you know, for some students, love them, they're wonderful, but sometimes the questions are a bit too much, especially if it's on the same old topic. So you can teach them how to search up this information, and they learn a skill of how to use keywords to find information. SIM card. This is a little thing in your mobile phone, a smart card subscriber identity module. inside a mobile phone carrying an identification number unique to the owner, storing personal data and preventing operation if removed. I'm on my very first smartphone, so I don't know too much beyond this, but for the fact that I believe in some cases, one can take one's SIM card from an old phone and put it into a new phone, or the person at the store can do that, or something to transfer information from your old phone to your new phone, things like that. Stylus. Nobody at my site uses them but me. I have, not meaning to sound awkward here, but I have rather large hands. And needless to say, they don't do too well with pushing tiny little keys, even when I touch really, really carefully. So I use a stylus. That's a pen-shaped pointing device used for entering data into a computer. Little rubber ball in the end here. It's interesting. It's not solid. And something to also bear in mind is if they don't work, sometimes what happens is they do wear out after a while. They're meant to have a similar bit of pressure. You actually touch with your fingertip lightly. I got something else in the chat here. Let's see. Let's see. Somebody's asking if they have a list of participants. Let's see. Yes, Cecilia, I do see you on the list of participants. Yep. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Janet. Yes, I know there's a lot of terms here to learn. And again, that's why I gave you the link to the slide deck and such. You can always review this later on. I try to make this something that you can refer back to later, both the manual and this glossary, because it is a lot. Flash drive. These are used a little less these days since we are using things like the Google Drive. That said, though, they can still be handy. And also, it's a good backup. I mean, for example, we used to think of the cloud as being a great backup for stuff we have on our computers, because the philosophy in the past was computers are not storage devices, they're workstations. As a result, you'll find less and less that we have programs to download to get things to work. Most things are just done through the cloud now. That said, though, it's not infallible. Things can be hacked. I've had friends of mine get hacked and get locked out of their Facebook accounts. So to prevent anything, if you have anything that's really dear to you, it never hurts to take the stuff that you've got, you store on your computer or on the cloud, and also keep it on a flash drive. It's also a handy way to transfer things around if you may not have Wi-Fi access in the location to where you want to plug this into a computer and things. This looks very simple. It's called a dongle. If you've ever gone to a food truck and they slide your card through this little thing that sticks out of a cell phone, that's what that's called, a dongle. Also, if you use, as I described earlier, the wireless mouse that you can use with the Chromebook, that also plugs into your Chromebook with a dongle. Okay, got some more questions here. Let's see. Okay. All right, we'll get into apps a little bit later. This is going to be mostly about pieces and parts, but I'll see what I can do to help out with that question about apps. Okay. These are cable, many of types of them. Hopefully in the future we'll have less of them as things can become more wireless. And that's the beauty of, I have a wireless keyboard and mouse at home now. Some people have been reluctant to use them because they say they don't want to have to keep replacing batteries. I have to say this, I have not had to replace my battery very much. So I love it because it means less of what they call the rat's nest, where you have a ton of cables and wires and things around your computer. Is never really fun. Power bank. If you have any type of mobile device you take with you out in the community, it's good to have one of these things keep in your backpack, purse, whatever it may be you carry with you. And what this allows you to do is have an extra power bank in case you run it low on your phone. So for example, maybe you didn't charge your phone in the morning you expected to, or something didn't charge right, and you really need to keep your phone going. You can just whip this thing out, plug it into your phone, and it's just like plugging it into the wall at home. It'll recharge your battery. My power bank will do 2 complete recharge cycles on my phone. It's a power strip. These are things you should have at home for your computers, even if you have plenty of plugs. The best type to get are the ones that also have surge protectors in them. At the very least, you want to have a thing where if lightning strikes your building, this thing melts, but not your computer. Software, that's all the stuff that programs and things that run on your computer. This graphic is a bit old, but it still makes the point, I think. Operating system. This is what you need to know, especially if you are getting help from the tech department. They'll need to know this to understand how to help you. protocol address, IP address. This isn't something you absolutely have to know, but this is something that you may need to offer to the tech department if they're helping you with something, and they can help you find that. It's different for every computer, so it's not. I mean, I've never had to use that, but I've had people tell me in the past the IT department asked for it. Let's see. Somebody says yes. Flash drives, aka USBs, are used for laptop. Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're wonderful devices. I mean, there's little ways to just take around your information. And again, it's a the flash drives are still used. Somebody's asking. Yes. Yeah, I don't use them myself much. But for example, let's say that I want to print something out over at Kinko's for whatever reason. I can just stick a file onto my flash drive and run it over there, stick that in the computer, and do that all print it out that way. Also, on top of that, if anybody knows any DJs, boy, things have changed a lot. Some DJs are still DJing from vinyl. As a matter of fact, I think that's still kind of cool to be DJing from vinyl. CDs are still used, but some DJs aren't using either of these. Instead, they put all their songs in a flash drive. For those at home, I have been involved with the Furry Freedom Village at San Francisco Pride for over 20 years, and we have DJs there, and that has them in the past few iterations of the village been an uncommon thing. Someone might hand me their flash drive. I plug it into the CDJ machine, which can play CDs, but also accept the flash drive. And it gives me the list of songs, and I just turn the dial to whatever song they want. I push enter and then play whenever their number is going to come up. I was helping one day with the drag queens when they were arrived late and their DJ wasn't there. So I helped them with that. Usually I just DJ my own stuff. Yeah, somebody said that usually the flash drive is usually for transferring docs from one laptop to another, or music too. Yes, you can transfer that way. You can also do the share device on Google Docs. You know, again, it's one of these things, whatever works best for you. Browser, of course, is what you're using for looking at your different programs. So if you got Safari, Firefox, Chrome, there's an old Internet Explorer thing, I think, is there. Now it's Microsoft Edge. Okay, the internet, also known as the World Wide Web. That's what the www and URL stands for. ISP, Internet Service Provider. This is the company that provides your internet service. Examples of the AT&T, Comcast, etc. I don't think people talk much about their ISPs these days. I mean, the term's still relevant, but it just isn't really used much. We just say Comcast or whatever it might be. Intranet. The difference between the internet and the intranet is this. The internet is something everyone can access. That's World Wide Web. The intranet, an example of that is SFUSD, where we can access it when we log in with our credentials, but the general public can't. So the things that parents and stuff can do is going to be based on what they're allowed to see as parents. And then internal stuff that has to do with our documents and payroll and this and that, that's going to be on the intranet, and only employees of the district will be able to see some of these things. Programs, apps, these are things that are either going to be on your mobile phone, on your computer, or what have you. There, in the case of mobile phones, there's still apps that we download. In case of computers, as I've said, fewer and fewer things are actually being downloaded into your computer. Some are, like my Norton antivirus software and a few other things, but a lot of stuff is on the cloud now. At your home page, that's something you can set up on either your Chromebook or any computer where you open up your internet. It goes right to the page you want to look at first. Light mode versus dark mode. My understanding is that Twitter, or what used to be called Twitter, is going to get rid of light mode altogether. Dark mode was an option for a long time, and in many cases on a lot of computers, it still is an option. As it is, it allows you to darken your background and view lighter text. There's reasons for this, and includes the fact that it uses less power on a mobile device, so that way you save your battery energy, and also you save your eyes. Apparently, for the purposes of reading electronic text, the best thing to do for yourself is to reduce that pouring of light into your eyes. As a result, you have a dark background with light text. That said, I haven't made my slide presentation quite like that yet, but I do actually use a light gray in the background so it doesn't attack your eyes too much when I show you all this stuff. Search engine, you have Google, Yahoo still exists, Bing's out there still, and this is where you're going to be surfing the internet from, typing in various keywords and such. Keywords. Keywords are ideas and topics that define what your content is about in terms of SEO, search engine optimization. They're the words and phrases that searches enter into search engines to discover content, also called search queries. If you boil everything on your page, all the images, video, copy, etc. So this is an extremely important concept in terms of how you look things up. It's something we need to know, and it's something we need to impart to our students. When I was a kid, we used a Dewey Decimal System to find things. Now it's all about keywords, and it's going to be something you'll use at the library to find books. It's going to be what you'll use to find information on the internet. URL, Uniform Resource Locator. You don't need to memorize that, but you know what a URL is. That's basically your internet address for when you look stuff up. Websites, of course, obviously, we know what those are. We have our district website. The cloud, this is where you store files, like I mentioned earlier with Google Drive. Wonky is interchangeable with not working properly. So sometimes things do go wonky. One of the things to bear in mind about electronics is to, never ever have the philosophy, it can't be wrong, it's a machine. No, they can be temperamental. And it's best to talk nice about them, I found, because if they think you're upset, they sometimes don't work right. Tab browsing is a function of web browsers that allow users to surf and view multiple pages by loading the websites into tabbed sections of one page rather than multiple pages. You can also set your home page up to be a couple of pages. Like, for example, when I open up my Google Chrome with the district, I get both my email and my Drive because of the two things I'm going to be using. The toggle, so you can move things back and forth. There's sorts of switches that are going to be moved by way of clicking on them or clicking and holding and moving or whatever it might be. Turns things on and off. You can also toggle between tabs. Waffle, there's a Google Apps Launcher. So that's where you click on that. And just so you know, you can move the icons around. So if you see too much stuff there you don't want to deal with, take all the stuff that you want to know, put it at the very top of the thing. You can figure out how to move them around pretty easily. You just click on them and drag them. And you'll do yourself a great favor. Remember, these things supposed to make our lives easier and our jobs easier. Pancakes, updating icon. This is generally going to be something that's open up some type of menu when you click on it, and gives you various options of things you can do. A Google Workspace Learning Center. This is a live link. If you click on it after having downloaded your slide link, then this will take you to the Google Workspace Learning Center the district offers, and that way you can learn more about these programs. Google Classroom works for both in-person and distance learning. We use this, of course, during distance learning a great deal. You can do assignments or worksheets through it. If you make a worksheet for students, you can actually make a copy for every student. So when they fill in answers and stuff, no one else will see it. Things like that. It's very handy for putting information on, distributing it within your staff. We have actually used a Google Classroom just for staff to put announcements and other sorts of material on during the school year. Google Docs, of course, is an equivalent to Microsoft Word. The difference is that it doesn't have quite the same graphics and such, but on that said, though, I mean, I swear by it. Not to mention the stuff you do in Google Docs and store in your Drive, you can look at on your phone. We had an incomprehensible list of buses for our students at summer school this past summer. I made a table, which I'll explain in a moment, as to what that is, and I put the information we needed. In other words, we had like 7-digit numbers. Those weren't the numbers we saw on the buses. Those were like 2 or 3 digits, maybe 1. So I changed it to the numbers we'd actually see. And then a student showed up on a different number bus that one day. Was that permanent? Well, no, it wasn't. Okay, no problem. Another day? Yes, it was. So then I just got into my phone, and right on my phone, I was able to update that so that the rest of the staff could know what was going on. The table is a grid of cells arranged into rows and columns. Tables can be customized and are useful for various tasks like presenting text, information, and numerical data. I love these things. You can customize them you can look very, very boring like this. You can give them color. You can thicken the lines. You can do all sorts of stuff to make a document that is easy to read. That's the whole thing. Like I said about the bus situation, I had a document I could pull up right on my phone. I'm groggy in the morning. Summer school is only 5 weeks long. I'm not going to memorize all this stuff in a day. And so I could just pull my phone out when I was picking the students up off the buses, and I could just know, okay, I have this person on this bus, that one's on that one. Oh, that bus has got a student on it, and whatever I needed to know. One of my fellow staff members at my school, I made a table for her because her job is to keep track of people's birthdays. They're really big about celebrating them at our site. And when I made the table up and showed her how to do it, then she's like able to adjust information. When students graduate, you're removing them from the list. You can add rows, delete them, all the stuff you need to do. It's a bit much to explain all of that here, but once you get the hang of how to use these things, they're very helpful. Page borders on Google Docs, they don't have fancy page borders like Microsoft Word does, but you can do them. How you do them is you open up the table function and you insert a table of just one cell only. Then you put whatever it is inside that box, and it'll stretch it. And if you want to stretch it to the full size of the page, all you have to do is keep hitting enter until it gets to the full size of the page. And then you can adjust your text, to put it in the middle for a title page or whatever it is you need to do. You can do this solid line like you see here. You can do dashes or dots, and you can color them. So it's not like Microsoft Word. You've got like decorative things like pumpkins and things like that. Google Docs is not quite so fancy. And if you try to translate a Microsoft Word document into a Google Doc, it won't, the pumpkins will go away. But still, that said, this is a nice handy thing. It's also good to make documents where if you're aware of your thickness of your lines around the outside versus the middle, you can actually make a document easier to read and less tiring on the eyes. Google Slides, the very thing we're using right here, similar to PowerPoint. Google, this is what we're now using in place of, I think before we're using Excel. And again, the thing that's wonderful about this is it's easily accessible online and will work online. So for example, we have goal sheets that we use Google Sheets for at my school. And when we're out in the community and maybe we're running later, maybe we just feel like getting out of the way so the students have some computer time when they get back to school, we can pull our phones out, just do the goals right on the phone. I mean, it's a matter of, in our case, we have to save several goals for a student. We pull the thing up, tap, and we insert the I for independent, W for with help, N for didn't do, whatever it might be, and go on with our lives. And again, makes things nice and easy. Zoom, of course, is the very thing you're using here. I was very surprised at the say we first started using Zoom, how underdeveloped it was. I remember back years ago when the Kinko's was a much bigger thing than it is now. It still exists, believe it or not. I saw that the rooms they have with these cameras and meeting rooms and stuff in the table and everything. I thought, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. And I imagine that by now everything would be this really simple technology. Well, we're at where we're at now. We about that. Keyboard shortcuts. This is something I find that a lot of people who are very beginners don't want to know. So I'm not going to overemphasize it, but this is something that will work for some people and not for others. So for example, if you want to cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, as explained here, you can use on a PC the control button. You hold it down, and X for cut, C for copy, V for paste. The reason why it's not P for paste is because P is for print. These are things that for some people it's easier to do. I have to say I primarily use the control V for pasting, especially for repetitive pasting. And now that's it. So I got information for getting paid at the end and all that there. And now we'll take a brief pause. Does anybody have any questions about what we just covered? Okay, I will now go into the manual. Oh, and let me also, let's see, it's back on everybody. I'm going to repaste the links. So again, I have the agenda here, today's slides, which we just went over. All the stuff you just saw is in that slide deck. So feel free to save that to your drive, use it as a reference if you need to. The reason why it's not alphabetical is my logic was to put things in order of what you mostly would need to know to start with. And then as you would be doing things or whatever with whatever devices, the sort of things you need to know. Putting the very handy tip stuff like the shortcuts at the very end, because again, some people love them, other people are allergic to them, and it's fine. I mean, the thing about computers is that they're intended to be intuitive. And so if something seems like it would probably work, it probably will. That said, sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling with these things to get the hang of what that's going to mean. But, you get there eventually. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So you can copy and paste with keyboard shortcuts. You can copy and paste with your mouse, whatever is most comfortable to you. Okay, so let's get now on to the manuals there. Okay. Do-do-do-do. Okay, so this in the manual, I have all the stuff you saw on the slide deck. As a matter of fact, I made the slide deck from the manual here. So that's again, this is where all that stuff is from the slide deck right here. Okay, and then this is the step-by-step instructions for everything I think you should need to know to at least get started. I don't get heavy duty into a lot of technical things with how to do this or that thing on Google Docs or what have you, but this is all some good basic stuff to know. So it explains to you where to find your start button. It's going to be different on computers depending on what you're using, but the symbol that I have on my manual and such, that's pretty much what you're going to see as a circle with a line in it. That's very often what it is. In the case of the Macs we use at my site, the power button is around the back side of the monitor. Or the towers, it's on the front, top, or side, or what have you. Usually pretty easy to find. If you can't find it, just feel your way around. It's never going to be in the very back, at least not in my experience. I mean at the tower at the very least, and for the Macs, they're going to be toward like the corner because you basically be able to easily reach around the side and pop that thing on. How do I log into my district email and internet FTUSD homepage? I have instructions here about how to do that. And then how do I log onto my district email through Google, which is a simpler thing, quite frankly. And again, these links are live. So if you download the manual, you can click on these things that are the blue with lines under them. This is one of the things that's great about Docs now, is that any link you put on there, instead of having all these ugly long web addresses, it will offer automatically to replace it with the title of the page. And if it doesn't, you can edit it so that you get that instead. You can put any word in. That's where, for example, you get some of the things. If you want this information, type here, and the word here is highlighted in blue. That's because the URL was able to be edited in that fashion so that clicking on the word here would take you to whatever the web page is. How do I record my work hours, sick days, etc.? Now, my understanding, and please feel free to double check this, is that for today, if you're using your 7 contractual hours, there is not a way to input that into Empower. You simply use the form, which I need to get to somebody today. I told her I give it to you, so I'll get that to you, Cecilia. That you turn over to your administrator, and especially just take this thing and make your copy of it or whatever, and customize the title with your name on it, and fill in all the information. I make the title of the thing itself with my name in it, so that it's very easy for whomever it is who's going to pay me to find. And you would record that on there, and your administrator, if you're a paraeducator, is the one to input the 7-hour day. Again, feel free to review the page. That's my understanding of it. I think I got it right. I feel like last year there was an option to, instead of picking the 18 hours we have, to pick the 7-hour day. I may be hallucinating, whatever the case is. This year, that's not how it works. So the 7-hour day that we get at regular rate of pay, the information needs to be turned over to your administrator. If you've signed in, there's verification you've been here today, and you just need to sign in the one time, you should be fine. And then turn that form over to your administrator. What you want to make sure you do, though, don't simply give them the form. You have to share it. Okay. The reason why is because if you don't click the share button and add them to it, they can't see it. You see, everything automatically defaults to restricted. So that's something I have to remember to check before I do these presentations. If I give you the files I gave you today and then make it accessible to everyone, then some people won't be able to see it. Okay, screenshot on MacBook Air. I don't know how to do that offhand, but the easiest way to figure out how to do that is going to be to go to Google and ask Google that question, and you should be able to find the answer. Something to watch out for is that when you're given instructions online about how to do things, as much as it's easy for me to say, hey, just Google it, I make that funny laugh because I can't get over how many times I have looked up instructions and they're from 2017 or something. And I'm like, okay, come on, I want to know how to do it now. Then I put in whatever my question is, 2023. Sometimes it gives me what I want, but sometimes it still doesn't. Well, eventually I figure it out. More
Daniel,
often
did
than not, the
you say
information.
how did you screenshot?
Asking how to do a screenshot on a MacBook Air.
You can do, I did it by error. You can do Shift-Command-3.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, this is also an important thing too. When I do this class, I encourage people to share information because you know, all of us know a little something. Like, I mean, as much of the stuff that I cover in my manual here, I don't have everything. So it's always good for us to work together. So the recording hours, training hours, etc. I have basic instructions here about how to do that. We're not going to get heavy duty into that because I got a lot to cover here. But these are all step-by-step instructions, and these should all work. Again, what do you call it, highlighted words like this and stuff, all those are live links and they should work. If a link doesn't work, please feel free to contact me, say this link, and just give me the page number and what it is, and I will double check it. I'm going to do that again after this session today, because I know that yesterday I was going over everything and checking my links, and something was there one time and an hour later it wasn't. And I think it's because around August they start updating everything. They've probably been working on it over the summer, but then they start uploading all those new web pages and stuff to the internet. How do I view my paycheck? This is super important. You go on the internet and you're going to be going to Empower. And then once you get onto Empower, you're going to be going to My Employee File. Then just basically the information there, what to do. And it's interesting because you've got pay information, the downward caret from the menu of the computers, click the payroll information button. There is one that's, I think it says pay. Yeah, this will move to the section top of your screen. On the right, you will see pay statement in gray, below that in blue. Click the blue words, will take you to your most recent pay statement. The pay statement image will load in the middle of the page. At the top center of the image are the page number and 3 buttons, 100% up, down, caret to fit the image to the page size. Actually make it larger. There's for everything you do on the computer, there's ways you can make your image larger or smaller, depending on whether it's a web page or whatever it is. So some of us who have issues with sight and stuff like that might need larger text. There's ways to make things larger or smaller. And then you can print them. I personally recommend if you have a computer at home to save your paychecks to your own computer. If you do that, it'll be in a PDF form, and you can always reference them later. You can always dump them when you decide you don't need them anymore. But it gives you a way to look at them in case the internet is down with the district, or I mean, for me, I just like having my own copies of things in case I ever want to review them. They're very easy to find. And if I'm looking at something from some time back, I don't have to click through all the paychecks on Empower to get to it. How do I arrange a substitute online? Way back when, there used to be a bunch of numbers to input to get this done. Now you just log in with Google. So I have my step-by-step instructions here about how to do that. And it's pretty easy. I feel like from what I've checked recently that the subsystem online has changed in terms of the graphics very much all from years ago. So that part's the same. Just the logins changed slightly. And if you're new to the district, you can forget what I said about how it used to be. I believe you can still do that stuff over the phone. But honestly, the best way to do it is through the internet, because you can do things like you can type in instructions. I want to tell you, when I used to do it over the phone years ago, I started out as a sub 20 years ago with the district. And I hated leaving instructions verbally because at some point I would flub something and have to re-record it. Okay, great. Yeah, so somebody's networking with somebody already about some information. Good. Okay, how do I register for professional development through SFUSD website and Oasis opportunities, announcements, site to-dos, and other important stuff? So this stuff is going to be primarily in the Oasis bulletin. That's where you're going to find all this stuff now. There are ways to, you can get the information for employees page and things like this. All those links are live. But the easiest thing to do is to read Oasis. Now, if Oasis seems overwhelming, this is the thing about Oasis was kind of cool. When the new issues of Oasis come out, the very top has got the newest stuff. Okay. And if you want stuff specific to like paraeducators, then you can just click on that link and it'll be only the announcements for paraeducators and such. It can be overwhelming, but the easiest way to do it is to not get too concerned about anything other than whatever is at the very, very top of the page. I find generally I'm able to find the things I need, but even then sometimes I miss something. Somebody else at my site will pick up on it. Like, for example, things to know, when are the summer school applications available? When are the summer assistance applications available? Things like that. It's super important stuff where we're, relying on that to get some form of income. What is WageWorks and how do I use it? This is pretty cool. I'm currently only using it for my transportation, but apparently you can also use it to pay for your medical expenses as well. And to put this in perspective, you can write medical expenses off on your taxes. I'm now going through a period of doing adult braces, and apparently even orthodontal work can also be written off on my taxes. Now, I'm not using WageWorks to pay for that, but the thing is that it saves you the trouble of writing these things off on your taxes, because lo and behold, you can write your transportation expenses to and from work off on your taxes. As a result, I can get my MuniPass debited right from my paychecks pre-tax, which lowers my taxes, and it never fails. Now, some people have worried about what happens if they don't work summer school. Would they lose that benefit over the summer? No, it's just like your medical benefits. They double charge your last couple of months of school to cover the summer. It has had very few problems. That said, I have some pro tips here. For example, there was once or twice where I was contacted by WageWorks. Something didn't work out, and I was going to have to buy my own pass that month. The thing to bear in mind is that they're not going to contact you again and say, okay, everything's fine now, don't buy them anymore. Only buy it for the month they tell you to buy it for. Otherwise, you might do what I did, which I thought, oh, wow, they haven't told me everything's okay now. I guess I had to keep doing this. And ended up by overspending on a given month. That said, they credited it me, but way back in the day, it took 5 months before I got that credit, but I got it. But the thing is that otherwise it's really handy and painless, and except for an occasional glitch, it's really well worth it. Raz Kids through Clinton. Yeah, I don't know too much about Raz Kids. There's a lot of apps I don't know about. This is an extremely basic class, so I'm sorry I can't help more with that. So this is this looks a little bit somewhat complicated. I guess 9 steps. I don't know, but honestly, when you sign up for WageWorks, it's almost so simple. It's almost creepy. You wonder even how they know who you are, but they do. How to apply for a position with SFUSD? Explain for the thing. Find things on the adjoin page. How do I use Google Calendar? This is kind of interesting. I've been getting into using Google Calendar more, not just for school, but also for my personal use on my personal account. So I have a personal Google account and the SFUSD one. And it's interesting because when adding things to the calendar, my favorite thing is when it comes up and it has the thing add to calendar and it just takes it right to the calendar. Sometimes it doesn't do that. And what it does is it downloads a file and you then upload that to the calendar. And to find out how to do that type of stuff, you can go ahead and just Google that, because it's pretty simple, but it's very handy. This is cool here. How can I get Microsoft Office 365 free as an educator? You click on this link here and it gives you all the instructions. While you are an educator with a .edu email address, if you are an educator or a student, you can get the whole kit and caboodle, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, everything. Some people have abandoned Microsoft Office because we're using all these Google products now. They're also pretty interchangeable. For example, you can upload a Google Doc, a Microsoft Word doc to Google, and it will then function as a Google Doc. And more recently, I'm finding that it does not mess around with the formatting too much. In the past, converting these things back and forth made things go absolutely weird. I'm finding that less and less now. I think that everybody's figuring out that it's better to have these things be compatible. Also, incidentally, I don't have anything on here about this, but there's a little thing called Cloud Convert, and you can take just about any file and turn it into about anything else. So, for example, I've been able to do things like take a Google Doc and turn it into a JPEG. And use that then as an image when something when I need it as an image form. How do I learn about SFUSD training with the Department of Technology? So this is stuff that's primarily going to be done online, and all these links again are live. You can also contact them as necessary. They're very helpful, I find. Of course, it may not seem like it when they got overburdened with so many tickets way back when. And also, we're still trying to figure out what's going on with Empower. But when it comes to when they can get through to you and they know what they're doing, and they can give you the proper advice to do stuff. I had a situation happen sometime back, and this won't come up probably, but everything keeps changing. So at one point I was given an iPad for the Paraeducator Leadership Network, and I was just looking with my school credentials, At some point, I get this memo, as everybody did who got these things, from the district and computers, laptops, a whole bit, saying people would no longer be allowed to log in with their personal accounts. Well, I wouldn't have anyway, but some people apparently did. Knowing tech, I contacted them and I said, okay, well, when this change happens and we can't log in with our old credentials anymore, will that affect me who's been logging in with my district credentials all along? Of course, they said no, because that makes sense, right? Why would it? I mean, they're changing to that. Sure enough, whatever it was, some computer thing somewhere read the thing is this email address must change. So I was locked out. That's okay though. I got down to the Department of Technology and we did a little reprogramming and everything's working fine now. We can contact them from the employee homepage, these various links here, and also have the phone number in case you need to call them. How do I contact the professional learning and leadership team with the Office of Professional Growth and Development within the Department of Curriculum and Instruction to find out about professional development opportunities and professional support? So I have some line there. Again, all the stuff here that you would find there is also going to be coming through Oasis. So that's where you're going to get your most current offerings as they come about. What are Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and how do I learn how to use them? Well, the thing is that these are pretty much the same types of programs. As I said, though, Google Docs doesn't have as the same fancy graphics or formatting options, but it honestly has served my purposes just fine. So, with the exception of some more creative or involved, Google Docs will do everything and explain briefly what's going on there. What is texting and how and when should you use it? I'm in a community-based program, so texting is essential to our job. For example, you're out in the community and I get a text from lead teacher, so-and-so's OT is showing up today rather than tomorrow, so you need to bring such a student back early. Great, so I get that message immediately, and then I know to make a slight adjustment to the schedule to get back to school on. These can serve as walkie-talkies for security purposes on any campus or what have you, if you need to handle any information, or simply ask somebody a question when you're clear across campus and don't have time to walk all the way to the other side of the school to find out what you need. Texting also is a lot less invasive than a phone call, so they can be very handy. Just to put it out there, there is discussion in the land of Connecticut about, are people required to answer all texts immediately? And Manners actually has a take on this, an interesting one, because she points out that when the telephone was invented, it was an intrusive device. The point being that no one was ever required to answer their telephone immediately, especially if they're eating or busy or something, whatever it might be. So when someone's called at an inconvenient time, it's perfectly acceptable to let the answering machine get it, or in the case of our phones, it's the answering app. That said, though, one must navigate these things carefully. If we have relatives that are going to get hostile to that, well, we have to kind of manage that. That said, though, generally when it comes to texting, it should, if you have something that you need to get in touch with someone immediately and it's like an emergency situation, very short message, make sure that, that it's understood among your people, your team, what you should be doing. Testing with students, of course, is something that we generally don't want to have going on during class, but we also want our students in our community-based program, these are students 18 to 22 with intellectual disabilities, to be able to text effectively so that, for example, if they get lost, if they need something, if an emergency is going on, they know how to text and what to do. So it's, again, one of these things where we want to have good boundaries, but we also don't want to say, oh, no phones, no phones, no phones. That to me is too old school. Obviously, phones need to be put to the side sometimes, certainly during class. Also, we don't want students thinking of these devices as texting friends with the dramas that teenagers somehow have a tendency to have. And those are, of course, that's not what phones are for, really. I mean, they're going to do it, of course, to a point, but we don't want them to see their phones as just that. They want to see them as tools. A little bit of instruction on how to print. How do I find my IP address? This is something that the Department of Technology can help you do if you need it, because in some cases, if they're helping you with a tech issue at your school, they may want to know the IP address of the computer in question, but they can help you find that. Also, you can Google that stuff. The basic stuff about how to send email. Most of us know how to do this. If you don't, that's okay, because some people are just getting to these things now. And I have some simple instructions about how you basically open it up, compose, etc. One of the things to bear in mind when you're using the Chrome browser and you're using, you're logged into the school with your email credentials and stuff like that, when you're on that account, when you go to the search bar, you can type in the name of anyone in the district with an email address, and a drop-down menu will happen. So you say you have Mary Smith, and we have 10 of those. Well, you might get all 10 Mary Smiths coming in the drop-down, but you can look at the picture. They've uploaded a photo, and you go, oh, that's the one. She's my friend. And click on that. It also helps to add everybody who is in your team to your contacts. So, for example, I have in my contact section a list of all the people who are the parents and teachers at my site. And I also, I'll get to this in a minute, I labeled them. So that way, if I want to email everybody at once, I could type in that label and all their addresses automatically go in. What is Google Drive and how do I use it? This is no different than storing anything on your computer. The only difference is it's on the cloud instead. And it is absolutely wonderful. I mean, you can take any file you've got in Google Drive and you can open it and click the share button, or you can right click it and click share, and you can share it with anybody. You can also keep things restricted. You can have documents that anyone in the district can look at. You can do like what I've done with this document here and made it shareable. Anybody with the link can view it. People can't edit it, so I don't have to worry about anything like opening up one day, oh my gosh, what happened to my document? That's not going to happen. But if they want to make their own version of it, all they have to do is make a copy of it, and they can type it up as much as they want. How to apply for summer school? And this is going to be something where you look for the OASIS announcement. These days, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you click on the announcement itself, it gives you an image that looks very much like the old paper images that used to be printed out and by secretaries back in the day and put in our mailboxes. It has, again, live links on it. And these days, it's a very simple form you fill out. And the best part about it is that it gives you a receipt. That's one of the things, in case it ever comes up, if you fill out something like that and there, for some reason, it's a choice to send you your own copy, toggle the little button to the side that gives you your own copy. It's a great way to avoid any problems. Little pro tip here. A situation happened one time where I applied for summer school one summer, and everyone at my site got a job except for myself. I'm like, that's weird because I was like usually the first person to apply. Long story short, the whoever it was in HR said, oh, I never sent my application in. Now, this is a really important thing. I could have just sent it in again, right? But you don't do that. This day, another case, there's a employee who sent him back in the day when we were for Empower. It was the very last thing we did where we had a paper thing we filled out and emailed it, or that was the paper, it was an Excel sheet, that's what it was, and you would email it in. Anyway, in such cases where HR doesn't get something that's important, they say you never sent it, if you send it again, you may or may not get what you want. In the case of the payment, my colleague said, when should I expect to be paid? You'll get a paycheck. He said, well, shouldn't they pay me right away? This is why they wouldn't. You have to prove you sent it in on time to begin with. Then the law kicks in, requires them to pay you immediately. If you send it in a second time, as far as they're concerned, they never got it. So they would then get it on your next paycheck. So this is what you want to do. With stuff like that, you want to have a receipt in some cases, and you have your sent folder on your email. Every email you send goes in there. So if HR needs something from you and there's a penalty for some reason because you didn't send it in on time or what have you, you can go to the email in your sent file and forward that to them, and it'll be time-stamped. Okay, so just bear that in mind. That could be a lifesaver. And mind you, nobody out there is a bad person. If they didn't think they got it, they didn't think they got it. But when you send that in by way of forwarding it from your sent folder, then you have proof that timestamp sent it in on time, and then things work the way you want them to. Let's see. How do you available vacation hours during the summer months? Oh, this is a little tricky. Not too bad, but a little tricky. Now, we used to have these blue forms back in the day. For this, has been around for a long time. For those who haven't, don't worry about that. Just remember, back in the day, we used to do these things on paper. The thing to understand, though, to use your vacation hours during the summer months, whether or not you work summer school, you absolutely must get it approved before the last day of school, unless you are sure, for whatever reason, your administrator is still working after the last day of school, and they may or may not be, depending on when they take vacation, because they have to approve it. And this is why. You put in that stuff, okay? For my case, the days in between regular school and summer school, and then the days after the last day of summer school on. those who work summer school, you know that the timesheet is a completely different timesheet. That administrator does not have the ability to approve your normal vacation hours. So what you need to do is do nothing more than the normal vacation request for the days in question. And how I do it is something like this. I get my assignment. I know at that point what days I'm working and when I'm off. At that point in time, I figure out my total number of hours available. I request vacation for those few days in between the regular school year and summer school. And then I subtract that from the total, look at what I've got left over. And then I put the remaining vacation on the days that start the day after summer school ends through to the exhaustion of what I've got in my vacation bank. That has never been a problem. And once it's approved, it's done. Unless the district does something wonky, you will get paid your normal hours. And if you don't get paid them, just put in a ticket and the whole bit, this song and dance. And I think over the years, this will get easier and easier. Believe it or not, I'm convinced someday Empower will actually work. I thought it'd be working by now because we've already gone through like a whole cycle of this. But it's like, you'd think this was the first summer school almost in some ways, but anyway, also this past summer school too, there was a little bit difference between years past and whether we got paid for holidays or not, but that's a whole different issue. Okay, so then we got that. And it's a step-by-step instructions there is, boys. What is OASIS? Opportunities, announcements, site to-dos, and other important stuff. This comes out every Wednesday. One of the things I recommend is, and I'll get into this in a minute, is that you filter your OASIS into its own label. So it does not go in your inbox, reducing clutter, but you have all your OASIS announcements in this one spot. And you can click up and down whatever emails you get over the various weeks and stuff to find what you need. How do I go on leave? Please use a listed email to get information from Leaves department. And I have that down here. It's really more of a site, I guess, where you put in a ticket. I have some basic instructions here, but as of last year, it was very unclear. They were restructuring the Leaves department. It looks like that may be done now. Whatever the case is, there is some information. I put these links are all live. There's a Leaves and Separations information page. And it may or may not explain everything you need to know. And if you don't, then if you have a question, you submit a ticket through Zendesk at this eis.sfusd.edu. So it's kind of an email, kind of not. How to do an internet search. I have some basic instructions there about this, and this is where the keywords things comes in. Some people are really tripped up by keywords. They find in some cases that the keywords are the concept is a little bit abstract. After a while, you will get the hang of it. I mean, you can either type in a whole question, a few words, and at some point in time, you have to figure out what types of things will most likely get you the information that you're looking for. Okay, it's a skill that takes a little bit of time to develop, but you get the hang of it after a while. The thing to do is to keep it intuitive and easy, and use the language you use in your own head to get the way you would normally talk to ask somebody a question. And you're never going to find you're going to get what you need. Okay, how do I scan and email documents through my copy machine? This is something that I have some basic instructions here based on the copy machine at my site. It may differ with yours. Yours may or may not be hooked up to the internet. It probably is now, but this is super handy. This is the type of stuff you're going to need. For example, someone does jury duty and they want you to send in a copy of your badge, and it's as simple as putting the document on the copier, and instead of making a copy, you choose the option to email it. Anything you do like that, I suggest this: email it, anything like that, to yourself, and then forward it to who needs it. That way you have two things. You have a copy of the document in digital form for yourself to resend as necessary to other people or that same person. But on top of that, again, if you send it in and they don't get it, you can go to your sent folder and just simply forward that email to them. How do I copy and paste text or images? So I have some instructions about how to do that. This can take a little while to develop a skill in terms of stuff like knowing when you're going to copy and paste and have to resize an image and when you won't. But you can figure that stuff out. Certain things you can, for example, if you copy an image off the internet, as opposed to click and insert, and you put it into one of those tables I talked about, it'll actually fit to the space. Meanwhile, I find doing the slides, when I insert an image, it's always going to be a matter of being too big or too small, and I have to move it to where it needs to be. But there's some basic instruction on how to do that. How do I bookmark websites for easy future reference? This is extremely important to know how to do because, again, it's about making your life easier. You have a bookmarks bar at the top of your Google account. It comes up with your email or your Drive in your Chrome browser. I should say it's actually more part of the browser, not so much as part of the email. But if you open up your Chrome, to view your email, you'll see the area at the top. The only thing you got to do to make a bookmark is to click the little star that turns blue. And what will happen is you will get an icon on your bookmarks bar, if that's the place you choose to put it, because it gives you a couple options. And you'll also get the name of it. What I have a tendency to do to create more space, something I want to have a cluttered top, but if I know what something is, I get rid of the title so I have the icon. As a result, for example, my very first icon is Empower. The next one over is HR. The next one over from that is my Gmail. The next one over from that is Drive. So these are all things I'm going to be using on a regular basis. And so these are the ones that are first, and as I go across the screen, they're the ones I'll be using a little bit less, but still want to have. When you run out of space, they become part of a drop-down menu that will open up, and you click the two little arrows that point to the right, at the very top of the book of your browser. And what's great about that is that when you put it, your first bookmark something, it automatically goes to the bottom. But you can drag and drop it so that you can keep everything alphabetical or whatever way you want to put it so that's nice and easy. Google Classroom to do distance learning across different devices like desktop computers, Chromebooks, iPads, or smartphones. Fortunately, we're not still doing distance learning, but in case this comes up for anything from a kid who has to be out of school for a while, who may be learning from home or whatever it might be, I recommend this, that whatever students you're working with, if they're doing stuff like that, to download the apps you would want them to use in your own devices. So, for example, when we're doing heavy duty into distance learning, I put Google Classroom and other things on my phone. I took them back off eventually because they were taking up space. I didn't need them. They can always be added on back on as needed. And it allowed me to see what students could do. It comes in handy for two things. One, if a student needs basic instruction on how to do something, you're doing it yourself, so you know how to tell them how to do it. And if they're being like, sometimes students can be where, oh, I can't get in there, it's too hard. You can say, well, I just did it. So whatever the case is, it's good to know those things. How do I use my Chromebook to do the work I have done on desktop computers? Except for a difference in the way the keyboard is structured. Most of the stuff is still the same as a regular QWERTY keyboard, but I have the full set of keys explained here on this Use Your Chromebook keyboard. And a lot of things are going to be exactly the same. Once you get the hang of using the Google Drive, everything becomes pretty easy from that point. I mean, you don't need to be doing stuff like the way we used to with Microsoft Word, where we'd have a file and we'd have to have it stored on the computer and how do you transfer it. The beauty about Google Drive is everything you have there can be accessible from any computer where you log into your account. Anything. It's just wonderful. Let's see. Okay. So once somebody's asking again about how to bookmark a page. Let's see, how do you do the request and a power for approval? Okay, so I will get into how to enter your hours. If you're doing the 7 hours, you want to fill out that sheet. We used to call it the passport, but that everybody should be emailed this sheet, and you turn that into your supervisor. My understanding is that paraeducators are not going to be submitting the 7-hour day with the contractual 7-hour day through Empower. That is done exclusively by your administrator who has to input it. So back to how to bookmark a web page. Okay, what you're going to do is, let's say you've got your browser open on Chrome. You have your web address for whatever page you're on. On the very right-hand side, you will see a little L with an arrow pointing to the right. Skip that. To the right of that is a star. If you click that star, it turns blue. And all that's in there. And when that's blue, it will give you an option to either put it on your bookmarks bar or into a folder. Unless you have a lot of bookmarks, it's easy just to put it on the bookmarks bar. And again, as I said earlier, if you go into an overflow thing, you have a drop-down menu for that. But to actually bookmark it, all you gotta do is click that blue star. I mean, well, it's click the star and it turns blue. Okay, let's see. Okay, so then we get to the really fun part. Handy email pro tips. I love this: unsubscribe, filter, delete. You shouldn't hate email. It's easy to do so, though. To avoid email overload, dump anything you do not need or use. Whether you simply wanted to read an article and got subscribed to a newsletter, or you signed up with high hopes only to find you never read anything that came through, unsubscribe. For information you need, but is not of immediate concern, you can filter such messages and have them arrive under a label, leaving your inbox uncluttered. First, create the label. To do this, open your email on the left in the inbox column, click the downward caret to next to more. Click the plus, create new label, name your label. You can nest it under another label or not. Click the blue create button. Open the email you wish to filter. This will affect all emails coming from that address. Click the three dots at the right end of the row of icons at the top of the email. From the menu, click filter messages like these. You must see an email address in the from section for this to work. If instead you see a lengthy nonsense email in another field, which often begins with the word list, start over. Copy the email minus any via stuff and paste that into the from field. Click the create filter button. Check the necessary boxes. The most important ones to check are skip the inbox, archive it, and apply the label. Remember, you want this type of email. You simply don't want it drowning out urgent messages. So, for example, I register us for the food bank at our site, and all of the registrations result to me receiving an email that says you've been registered, etc. I don't need that in my inbox. I mean, I will look at it. I can click on it, and it tells me the address of the place I'm going to. And if, for instance, I'm not going that week, I could forward that email to my colleague, and they'll have that information. But I don't need it in my inbox. And the way I set my stuff up, the only thing I ever see in my inbox, if it's there. If it's not there, I don't have to get to it right away. At your leisure, you can read such email. This leaves your inbox for the most important messages. So that is definitely a lifesaver for in terms of, I mean, nobody wants to have tons of emails to read. And I know some people won't even look at their email because they get so many. But you have to tame that wild beast, as it were. How do I create a list of contacts and make distribution group lists? So I have these instructions here. I personally think that the best way to keep things simple is if you take all the people at your site or department. I mean, like in our case, we've got 13 or so staff. It's not that much, it's not like it's like 2,000 people. And I make a contact list that's got everybody there. And then there is the process then of making a label. And it's similar to where you make labels for your email. In this case, you're making a label for your group list. Once you make that label, and I have the instructions you hear about how to do that, then all you have to do is go to the individual contacts and label them under that label. And then in the future, I could put access staff into my thing on my email, and all of that staff, all go in there. I don't have to type it individually or look them up or any of that stuff. Okay, some more questions here. This session is being recorded. Yes, all the sessions are being recorded, whether we like them or not. So yeah, you should be able to review this later on. And again, also all these materials, all the stuff you're seeing here, this with the list of instructions, all that is going to be put in the chat yet again before we go. And it's also in the Google Classroom, which is listed on the agenda. Let's see, how can I use my mobile phone in the community for school-related tasks? I mentioned this earlier. The thing is that for our students, the most common feature is going to be looking up bus or train arrival times, probably in many cases for staff as well. And we train our students as part of their travel training to do this. We do restrict community phone usage for students while we are traveling. So we don't want them looking at their phones while they're on the bus. places where the phone could be stolen from them easily, things like that. But we've gotten away from the no phones thing and just turned it into, this is when you use them, how you use them, and then when you're on your own time, you can do the goofy stuff. We are also able to pull up, if you have the Google Sheets app installed, we can pull up the student goals and do those goals in the bus. Now, we usually do them at school because we have a little time to talk about them and things like that, how the student's doing, how they feel about things and such. The thing is, though, that sometimes Muni's goofing up, or something goes wrong, or a student has a meltdown, or whatever it might be, and we're running a little late. Well, enough time to get back to the buses, but maybe not enough time to sit and talk about goals. They can be done on the bus. You just pull out your phone, tap, 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 goals are done. We get back to school, everybody packs up, they go home. And if somebody had a meltdown, we can talk about that later, but we don't have to worry about not getting our goals done and wondering a day or two later what happened. Some Google Docs pro tips. Beyond making resumes and letters, I found the ability to create tables as an important part of keeping track of important information and keep accessibility simple. Create a table with rows and columns that you can arrange and structure as needed. You start by clicking the Insert button at the top of your doc, and I have other instructions about how to do these things. It's fun to play with this. You can thicken lines. I personally prefer, like when I make my bus list, to make a thick outer border. It stops my eyes from moving up and down too much. I studied graphic art when I was in college, my first year before I went into fine art. And there was a lot to be said for text flow and stuff. And so when you make either from site signs, assignments, we have a list of they're called Fresh Fridays or something for the job sites we have our students do. Each one has a cleanup activity to do. And when you format things in such a way where it makes it easy to read, you can take your rows or columns and make them slightly different shades of gray. So your eye focuses right on what you need, right when you need it, and you're not spending a lot of time looking for stuff. And even better, you can pull your phone out. You don't have to worry about any longer on Fresh Fridays. Oh, so-and-so's not here today, staff. So the students confused what their site job is. Gee, how do we find that out? Well, it used to be on this wall here. Where did that document? Just pull your phone out now. Look at it. I mean, it's really incredible. You can, so anything you need, you can just have right in your pocket. And the same thing with the students. And of course, the students especially need trained on that if they're going to do that at all. How do you make a page board of the tables function? Again, you don't have fancy borders with Google Docs, but you can do a one by one table. And you can insert text, images, whatever into it, and it will stretch across the page, but only a single row, but it stretches down. You add more text. And depending on what you want, whether you're making a title page or poster, whatever it is, if you want to stretch the border to its limit, just keep hitting enter until it gets to the end. And that can be a little tricky to figure out, like depending on your font size and this and that, exactly where that border is going to land. But for all intents and purposes, after a little bit of playing around with it, you can get a nice thick line. You can do a dash, you can do dots, and you can color them. So there's some tips there to make everything from like site signs or some sort of graphic for students to use. How do I share Google Docs? So this is the instructions there. This is something that's essential to know if you have multiple people looking at what you're doing at the very least, because they can't access it unless you share it so they can use it. You have choices of restricted, where you share it only with certain people. You can share with everyone in the school district. You can share it with anyone with a link. What are the advanced settings on Zoom and what applies to my use? So this is it's a very simple description here. Long story short, you open up your app, you've got some settings you can play with there. The thing is, though, they don't do that much. To get into the heavy duty stuff, preparing for a meeting like this, you have to go to the advanced settings, and through that, you go to their website. And there will be far more stuff than you want to see. That said, the best thing to do is to either look at it at your leisure or ignore it until someone tells you how to do what they want you to do. For example, with the Para Institute, we're given explicit instructions about what to do with our settings. For DDD, they give us explicit instructions what to do with our settings. Interestingly enough, for DDD, they want us to turn the waiting room on. For Para Institute, they want us to turn it off. So said though, generally for something like that, you don't need to worry about knowing that stuff well, because the people who are telling you what to do will know enough to tell you what you need to know. And that said, I think I'm down to about 2 minutes, and that's the end of my manual. So, does anybody have any last minute questions? And I will go ahead and put the links in the chat again. So I've got here today's agenda. The Google Classroom for this session is the link is at the bottom with the password. And I've got today's slides here if you want to review them. And of course, the manual. Everything I've shown you here today, you have access to. My job today was to just yammer on about this stuff and clarify anything you didn't understand. And if you want to contact me later, if you don't understand something, if a live link I've posted doesn't work, just let me know and I'll do the best I can to fix it. Okay, oh boy. Yeah, the Empower questions. This is something I unfortunately can't do too much with, but I can tell you this. For stuff like that, you'll need to contact somebody in the district. You want to know about your step increases. They don't, for some reason, put them on the graphic they give us now for our paycheck, which looks very much like the old printed paychecks we used to get. We used to have that. And this has been something that has been brought up a number of times. And I tell you, I don't know a single para out there who's happy the fact we don't see our step on our paychecks. I don't know what's going on with that. That's something that should be corrected. I don't know why it's difficult to do. A little background: I worked for a corporation years ago where we had a tech guy who helped us out. It was a retail company, and he was also the liaison between our company and the people that provided us with our retail software. He would talk with them about changes we wanted them to make, and they eventually reprogrammed their software to allow us to do our magazine returns, periodicals or thing in stores. And you had an outside vendor, they come in, they bring in the new issues, take out the old ones, they show the new and the old to the manager who verifies that you're being credited for the proper old stuff, and everything's all correct, and they take care of that. Internally, we had to do all that ourselves. And they eventually were able to come up with a program that rather than have to go into every single magazine and adjust the inventory, we just scan, print out a form, and automatically change the inventory, etc. That to me is how these things should work. Why we have the situation with the power we do, I don't know. I'm sure it's a much more complicated software, but it should be able to be coded according to how we use it. And exactly why that it's not happening faster, I don't know. It's one of those things that makes my brain hurt because I think it shouldn't be this complicated. Okay, how do you get paid for DDD? If you're using your 7-hour contractual day, the thing to bear in mind is there is a form you will have received in your email that you turn in to your supervisor. Your supervisor has to input the 7-hour contractual day. That is not done through Empower. There's also any sort of stuff you're getting from DDD as per emails. It should have a form explaining all that stuff. As a matter of fact, I can actually pull that up. I'll put the link to that in the chat real quick. Let me see. I got here. Let's see. Okay. Where is it? That's presenter. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, find it. Okay, well, I'm not finding it right now. Let me I got a professional development. Okay. Yeah, you want to make sure you sign in for the day, and the sign-in link is in the what do you call it? In the slide presentation I did. Let me see. Let's have this under Drive.
And Daniel, it's in the information that was sent out for Digital Day, how to get paid.
Yeah. All that should be in your emails and stuff. Yeah, I just like the idea of. I like to please my audience. So if I can find that document real quick, I'll put it here. Let's see. Oh,
Got you.
let's see. Here. I'm not finding it.
And where was the feedback format? I guess it was at the top of the chat.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a beginning. If you
Hi,
were here,
Janet. Thank you.
no problem.
Okay, and I think this is the form you might be needing here. Okay, I believe that explains how to get paid for the 7-hour contractual day. Yeah, inputting for pay for SY 23-24. Okay. Let's see. 7-hour contractual professional development day. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So this is for the 7-hour day. I do have instructions about how to get paid for 18 hours in the manual, and that's done through it's the most bizarre thing. It's under time off request for some reason. You start with that as if you're going on leave or something, but then when you put in for it, you choose the professional development and the 18 hours. So, okay. Anything else? Everybody's very welcome.
And hi, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but our next micro sessions are starting. Feel free to keep
Yeah.
asking Daniel a ton of questions, but if you're looking to start your next session, they will probably be starting right about now.
Yeah, I better get going because I need to get my next micro session too. If
Daniel,
anybody has any further questions, email me or just go to the Google Classroom, put
Okay,
them there.
I
Whatever,
want
and
that
I'll-
feedback form. I still can't find it.
Oh, hold
I
on.
have that link for you.
That, I believe
Please.
here we go. I'll put that link in there real quick.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
Daniel. Bye.
That's what I'm with right now.
Okay, that's the feedback form. I just sent that there. And then it also should be in the slide deck. Okay, take care, everybody. I gotta run. Have a great day. Any further questions, just send me an email or contact me through Google Classroom.
Take care.